hearing it.
We're good. We're starting. We're good.
Let's see what time. It's like it is 4:36. At this time, we'll call the meeting of the Canyon City Commission to order. With that, Commissioner Ray.
Father, we come before you. Father, we are grateful for the city of Canyon. We're grateful for this time of year. Father, we ask that you will help us to remember the significance of what this time of year means and help us to always put that first. Father, we want to lift up Joe's daughter to you, Madeline, and we also want to lift up Gretchen's husband to you, James. Father, we ask that you be with both of them, that you heal them, because you're the great physician. Father, be with us today as we make decisions and guide us through it. Help us make the right decisions. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That takes us to approval of the minutes of the meeting of November 21st, 2022.
No changes, I move we approve.
Have a motion second to approve minutes as written. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Passes. All right. Takes us to public comments from interested citizens. Vivian?
No one signed in.
Looks like we've got one maybe for an agenda item, so. Okay, then item number 6 is to consider and take appropriate action on petition by N&B Properties, Inc. for voluntary annexation of land in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of Canyon, and resolution number 28-2022, resolution of the city of Canyon, Texas, setting a date, time, and place for public hearings and providing for a notice of public hearings in regard to the proposed annexation of property within the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of Canyon at the request of N&B Properties, Inc., a Texas corporation, acting by and through its duly authorized president, Robbie Christie. Chuck, looks like you're.
Yes, sir, Mayor. I think it took you longer to read the caption than it's going to take me to present the agenda item. That's a long explanation. As the commission is aware, city manager and development review team have been working on the development known as Myra Park for the last several months, working out a lot of details on that development. Reached an agreement with the developer concerning the municipal plan of service, utility extensions on and off site, and the development agreement that will govern construction in the subdivision. Those written agreements are attached to the petition for voluntary annexation. The property owner, N&B Properties, Inc., has requested voluntary annexation of this property. For that purpose, this constitutes a presentation of that voluntary petition to the commission. And the commission is being asked to act on that by acceptance or rejection of that petition this evening. If you accept it, then we will need to adopt an annexation calendar. A proposed annexation calendar is set forth in Resolution 28-2022, which is included in the agenda packet. Also included is a copy of the notice of public hearings and the proposed ordinance, which has been assigned number 1168 for final action on the annexation, which will be February 13th, according to the calendar. So with that, I'll answer any questions anybody may have concerning this annexation. I believe everybody may be somewhat familiar with the development. As we have progressed through there, I think city managers kept you updated on most of the aspects of this, but I'll certainly be glad to elaborate on anything you want me to elaborate on.
Do we need 2 separate motions, Chuck?
No, sir. We can have one motion to accept the annexation calendar, and if the annexation calendar is accepted, then we'll need to, well, I guess we do need to, because we got to act on the first motion first. Yeah, I'll take it back. We do need 2 motions. So does anyone have any questions? It's a quick summary of the,
Chuck, the signed developers agreement's in there also, correct?
it is. The signed agreements related to the subdivision are attached to the petition for convenience. So I guess, Mayor, the first motion would be to accept or reject the petition for voluntary annexation by NMB Properties.
Any more questions for Chuck?
And on the screen, there's a map that Lucas Rayleigh has provided concerning the area of the annexation.
So all that in red's what's gonna be annexed, so. Right?
Yes.
Dustin, do you wanna elaborate on that?
Any other questions? Take them up.
So I just make a motion of the first portion, not the second portion?
Yes, we need a motion just the first one.
I would recommend two motions. I'll take
All
back
at the
my.
same time?
Huh?
All at the same time?
No, just the first portion.
Okay.
No, just accept or reject the petition for voluntary annexation would be the first one.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the petition for voluntary annexation submitted by NMB Properties.
Second.
We have a motion, and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
And Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that we adopt resolution number 28-2022.
Second?
We have a motion, and a second, to adopt resolution number 28-2022. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. The motion passes. So,
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
all right. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Dustin. All right. Item number 7, consider and take appropriate action to submit a fiscal year 2022 FEMA Safer Grant. Chief Wynn?
Mayor, Commissioners, good afternoon. Before I present my agenda item, I'd like to take just a quick moment to introduce our 2 new full-time firefighters that we hired in this budget year. Firefighter Avalos, we get Lupe, he was our part-time firefighter last budget year, and he worked full-time for BSA EMS. He is now full-time with us as of October the 15th this year. Firefighter Orcutt is our newest hire. She comes to us from Paccasac. She's been out of the academy for a little over a year now, and she's been volunteering with us for about a year. So these are your 2 new full-time firefighters for the city of Canyon. With firefighter Avalos coming from part-time to full-time, that vacated a part-time firefighter position. That position was reclassified into a part-time training officer position for the fire department. So we have Tully Robinson with us. Tully is not a stranger to the Canyon Fire Department. He moved into the dorm in 2009 and has continued with us since then. He is currently serving as a captain on the fire department here in Canyon as a company officer, and he's also a career firefighter with the city of Amarillo as a lieutenant. So these are your new hires for this year.
Thank you all. Appreciate your service.
Okay, moving on to the agenda item. As you know, we still have not heard anything on our 2021 Safer Grant staffing grant. We did find out last week that they did dump another $210 million into that Safer Grant. So awards will continue through the end of the year, December. Whether we hear anything or not, we don't know yet. But moving on into and trying to get ready for next year's FEMA Safer Grant. The grant application period is going to open sometime after the first of the year. That's pretty vague, I know, but that's all we're hearing right now too. But we would like to go ahead and be set and be ready for that application date. As you know, this past year when we did that, it was pretty much a time crunch. The grant opened, we got approval, and we'd like to have as much time as possible to get ready for this next round in the 2022 SAFER grant, which will be administered in 2023. We're asking for 9 firefighters. This past year, we asked for 6. I asked for 6 because that's what told you our immediate needs were. Things have changed a little bit in the couple of years that I've been here as the fire chief. We have got to start 24-hour staffing as soon as possible. Reason being is our staff they're overworked, and the 8-hour days on call at night, running all night, only to return to work the next day without recovery time, it's getting to them. I believe I mentioned that during our work session on the past SAFER grant. Our calls for service, last year were 1,610 calls. If we keep on the current track, we're looking at around 1,750 calls for this year. So you can see every year we're increasing that call volume. A couple months ago, our firefighter staff called for a staff meeting with Assistant Chief Whitfield and they presented some staffing possibilities, trying to move to 24-hour staffing with the current number we have on staff. If you divide that into 3 shifts, which is what it takes to cover 24/7 coverage, that only leaves 2 firefighters on each shift, which in no way can we provide adequate fire coverage with that number. As you know, our ISO rating evaluation dropped 2 to a 4. We're hoping to at least get up to a 3 with what we have right now. That's all going to be up to ISO, and we'll be responding to ISO's request for improvements here within this week. They asked for that this morning early. With that ISO drop, if ISO does not agree with our improvements, as we've talked about, we have a homeowner insurance increase. We're looking at a 15 to 20% increase in those homeowner rates. Once again, why are we dropping from a 2 to a 4? It's all about fire department staffing and our ability to operate properly according to ISO's ratings. Can we prevent us from dropping to a 4? Yes, but we've got to increase our fire department staffing and get back to 24-hour coverage. A little bit on our volunteer staffing situation at this time. We began this year with 23 volunteer members and 6 recruits. We are going to be ending with 19 volunteer members and 2 recruits. We had 1 volunteer member retire. That was the previous fire chief, Mike Webb. He retired from volunteer membership earlier this year. As you know, we had 1 volunteer member pass away when we lost Dave Hoff. We had 1 volunteer member resign, citing time commitments with family issues, or not issues, but family time. And also, since writing this, I have 1 pending volunteer resume due to time commitments. We had 3 recruit members resign during the training academy, citing time commitment issues. And I had 1 recruit member that was dismissed, but simply quit showing up. Put on top of that, at this time, I have 0 applications for volunteer recruit members this coming year. There have been no applications turned in. So, going forward, with 9 more firefighters, that would give us a total of 15 operational firefighters. That's not counting myself, Chief Whitfield, or Captain Root. We still need a total number of 18 to be fully staffed at our current station, but with a total number of 15, we can begin 24-hour coverage 7 days a week. With 15 firefighters, we divide those into 3 shifts, of course, 5 firefighters each, and begin 24-hour staffing 7 days a week, which will result in a greater retention of our firefighters and future staff. Once again, they're seeking that work-life balance, recovery time, so that they can have quality time with their family instead of just running all the time. Additionally, this would allow for us to loosen up some of our minimum training requirements for our volunteer members, such as EMS certification. Of course, our volunteer members, I've told you and I'll stick by it during my whole career, as long as we have volunteers willing and committed to responding, we're going to use them because we're going to still need them to supplement the duty crews on larger incidents. As the memo stated, we divide into A, B, and C shift, each shift working a 48 on, 96 off. That is the preferred 24-hour staffing model that our current staff is asking for. On our financial requirements, you can see there, year 1, year 2, and year 3. With those 3 years totaling up, we're looking at a grant request of just over $2 million. And then also it shows year 4, that'd be the first year of the city totally paying for all the financial requirements for the full-time firefighters. As far as we know, it's still gonna be a 3-year grant, 36-month grant with a 0% match. That could change when they send out the notice of funding opportunity next year. So that's where we're at.
Chief, lack of a better word, how do you advertise for recruits?
It's usually through social media and word of mouth.
That's a national trend, has nothing to do with Canyon, Texas, USA. We probably have a better chance of recruiting volunteers here than you would in many other places. But nationally, volunteers are just down. I haven't read that, but I can guarantee you that.
Yes, that's
Volunteerism in general is down. So that'll be an ongoing issue. And I think what the chief is here to do is to ask to move forward with the SAFER grant for 9. And I think that what we'll need to do is, moving forward would be to looking at, on the next budget, to be looking at the hiring of 3 more for the next budget. And then a commitment to saying that in the next year, we'll hire 3 more and 3 more. That'll get us to the 9, whether we have the SAFER grant or we don't have the SAFER grant. I mean, we're back to, when we had our work session, we discussed that and talked about how we would move on through and continue to hire those whether we get the grant or not. And so as we get closer to budget time, I could see us having another work session where we talk about those positions. But the key to that now is that if we're able to move forward, if we get the SAFER grant, that the advantage is that's 9, boom, we have 9 the first year. That year we would budget for 3. The next year we would budget for 3 more. The third year we would budget for 3 more. The SAFER grant would be gone. And we would have in our budget, the budget for those 9 firefighters to roll out. We would absorb those versus the grant as they came off the grant. We don't want to reach a situation where we would take the SAFER grant, hire 9 people, and then at the end of 3 years have our hair on fire trying to figure out how we're going to hire 9 people. So we would, through the budget process, add those staff members.
I agree with that. I'd just like to see us try other ways of recruitment, and us as a commission, anything we can do to help.
And they will, and they do. And they are.
But you know what, we did ask for a work session to come in and discuss that, I think, and I think we talked about that. So I think it would be good, I'd say in the next couple of months to come back and you know, us put that on the agenda, so I think
Yeah, cause I mean, like, has WT been contacted, has Lions Club been contacted, like, I think we could get the word out a lot.
A lot of things regular.
I haven't heard about it.
historically, WT students are they come on and they find out it's too busy for their college schedule.
That's
Well, mostly
why,
just the staff at WT,
Oh,
their
staff, okay.
families, I mean, there's a lot of word out that they could,
and that used to be a large pool for us, the city staff, and also WT was that's who carried us.
Yes.
I believe that'd be a correct way to say that. The difference is at West Texas A&M, the world is different, and people are not able to walk away from their jobs like they used to. And jobs have changed dramatically. We used to have lots of, we had guys in the IT department, the telephone guy, I can't think of names, but you know who I'm talking about.
And we had a large percentage of small business owners that were able to shut their doors at a moment's notice. And
Correct.
come to the fire station.
People such as Gary Robinson that would walk away from his business and do that. And today, that's not really that's not a real viable option. We should continue to pursue as many volunteers as we can.
Absolutely.
But that volunteerism doesn't solve the issue of our ISO rating. That will not enable us to necessarily pull out the third truck that we need to pull out. Every time we pull out, we need to pull out the 3 trucks, correct?
Correct.
And at this point in time, we're not able to pull out that ladder truck. And until we're able to pull those out, that's where our ISO rating issue is, right there.
With the addition that has been allowed in the budget years through the last couple of years, we are now at the point where ladder truck will respond. It may be just with 2 people, which is not a full crew, but we can respond and get it on scene.
But that doesn't, that just means you have 2 vehicles moving, correct?
Yes, we can get out the pumper truck and the ladder truck. With the second pumper truck that needs to go out is dependent on volunteer response, which 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, is nearly non-existent.
Right. So, I mean, the world has changed dramatically, and I agree, we, another work session would be great, Gary, we've talked about that, and they can work hard at that. But I think the chief's here today, looking for a commitment to move forward with that SAFER grant for those 9 positions. And as staff, we're stating, we just want you to be aware of the fact that if we move forward with that, the staff feels like we need those 9 positions, and that the commitment from you all is for the next 3 years to be hiring those 3 individuals to, whether we get the SAFER grant or not.
If there's not any more discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve the request to apply for fiscal year 2022 FEMA SAFER grant for 9 full-time firefighters.
Second.
Have a motion and second to approve the motion to apply for the FEMA SAFER grant for 9 full-time firefighters. Is there any further discussion?
I think it's important to distinguish the difference between his need for full-time firefighters versus volunteers. Almost wish it was a separate presentation, just because that convolutes, like, as if sometime, if he got 15 volunteers that applied today, that's not gonna solve the issue that he has. And
We need both.
we need both, and I think there might be some really cool ways we could incentivize city staff to even be a part of the volunteer fire department, but
Yeah, and to add to that, we always talk about pro-growth. We love growth. We love growth. Well, if we're gonna have growth, we gotta take care of these guys too.
Yeah.
So we gotta figure out a way to make it happen.
I feel like too, we're there where we need to go down this road to do this. There's 2 things. One, let's be substantial in our budgets for the next 3 years too, I'm saying. So we've got to keep that in mind. And then the other 2 is maybe a little different and long-term discussion, but on the volunteers and, ways that, we can come and talk about, potentially making that more viable or better publicity and all too. So maybe 2 different things, but. All right, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Additionally, we will be using the same professional grant writer that we're using for our equipment grant that you approved on the SAFER grant, and they advertise a 95% success rate. So, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank
We
you.
just hope they award them, right? That'd be good.
No news is still good news.
It's true, it's true.
Okay, item number 8 is conducting a public hearing and consider and take appropriate action on ordinance number 1166, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Canyon, Texas, rezoning the property at 1810 3rd Avenue, otherwise described as lots 5, 6, and 7, lot 35, original town of Canyon, in addition to the City of Canyon, Randall County, Texas, providing that the zoning classifications be posted upon the zoning district maps of the City of Canyon, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are expressly repealed, and providing for an effective date. Lucas, looks like you're up for us.
Yeah, unless, is there anything for the public hearing that should happen first?
I think
Since I'm new.
we'll take your presentation and then discussion, and then we'll open.
And then he'll open it after that.
Perfect. Yeah, so Kelby Hartman is here with us tonight. He has a property that you can see here on the map. It's over on 2nd Street there. 3rd Ave. My apologies. 1810 3rd Ave. It's currently zoned single family, but it backs up to the retail commercial district there, and he's applied for that to be rezoned multifamily with the intention to put a couple of duplexes on the property, much like the one he has over on 2nd. the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this zoning request.
You know, I think my only question was, you know, to open it up for multifamily could go several different options, but I guess we've got commitment that it will be duplexes on there instead, so.
Yeah, I'd ask that question to you, Kelby, as far as your intention for the use.
Ask the question again, I'm sorry.
The zoning change is a request to be multifamily.
That's correct.
Versus duplexes.
The reason for that, just because there's a lot of single-family homes on the street. I feel like if you try to zone it to commercial or something, they're not really gonna like that, just because it's more of a residential street. But if you stick to duplexes versus like, say, a 8-unit apartment building, I mean, that's just more likable, I think, to a single-family homeowner versus a duplex is more homey. It just looks more residential versus an apartment building. So
I agree.
And I think that was the mayor's question, is are you going to develop duplexes on the property and kind of maintain the character?
Yes, I actually have a site plan here that you can look at. It's very, preliminary, but it kind of shows you what I'll be doing there. Obviously, going to multifamily, it gives me the option to, build a larger scale unit there, but
Right.
for this, for the happiness of the people, doing just 2 duplexes is the way I'd like to approach it.
That would be my concern. I think duplexes are more appropriate probably in.
Absolutely. It'd be more appropriate for that area versus an apartment.
Yeah, and the reason that it couldn't be rezoned to just 2-family
It's
is
because of the
because one,
variance issue.
yeah, one duplex would fill that. So if he's trying to put 2 duplexes on, then it has to be zoned for the multifamily. And I will just add a note that, in this neighborhood, we're noticing this is happening on more than one property, zoning requests that have been approved for kind of getting out of this, single-family zone. If you could look at the map, it's very intriguing. This is something I brought up to Joe and John last week, and just looking at basically our development pattern and our density patterns here in the city. You'll notice RC3 is kind of one of our most dense districts. It's our retail commercial 3 zone, which is kind of the most dense central. And then to the north, you have RC2. To the east, you have RC1, and below that, you have 2-family. But we kind of have this weird neighborhood of single-family homes that are, pre-existing. I'm understanding there's a lot of rental homes there. But then above that, it's more multifamily. So I think this is kind of a neighborhood that as lots are vacated or existing vacant lots or homes, are not moved, that we're gonna see more of this kind of higher density development coming in, because it just kind of is one of the places in the city that makes sense for density to increase, rather than having, your typically your SFS, your single family suburban, you see those zones kind of on the periphery, outside of some of the more dense development. So I think this is kind of a trend we're gonna see continue as some of these vacant lots or older houses that can't be remodeled or torn down. I think that's something we're gonna keep seeing as a city. So I just kind of wanted to note that as an aside.
We anticipate seeing more, basically, in that neighborhood. We see that in
Queue for another lot in that
neighborhood
area.
changes.
So, yeah.
I think the duplexes make sense. My concern would be apartments or something, and
Understood, yeah, and that was a discussion we had, was, switching it to multifamily does give me options, but, we ultimately just had to do that because of the variance issue, just with the lot size and wanting to put 2 duplexes on it versus having it zoned to 2F, it just wouldn't allow it, so switching it to multifamily allowed those 2 duplexes to fit.
Any other questions?
if there's no more discussion, we will open the public hearing. Has anyone signed in? Then we will close the public hearing. Would entertain a motion.
Mayor, move we adopt ordinance 1166 rezoning
property at 1810 Third Avenue to multifamily.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, item number 9, conduct a public hearing and consider and take appropriate action on ordinance number 1167, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Canyon, Texas, rezoning 1700 23rd Street, otherwise described as Section 63, H and GN, Block B5, 228.6 feet south by 612 feet west, beginning 1,333 feet south and 88 feet west of the northeast corner of Section A property, County, Texas, providing that the zoning classification be posted upon the zoning district maps of the City of Canyon, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are expressly repealed, and providing for an effective date. Lucas?
Yeah, so this is our second rezoning agenda item. Hillside Christian Church bought the property adjacent to the existing church. They are proposing that the zone be designated RC2, which matches their existing zoning there, and obviously allows a religious building, retail commercial. 2 kind of just fits the size and scale of their building, and also kind of matches the rest of the RC2 we see along 23rd Street there. So this is a recently annexed property that did not have zoning as it was outside the city, and so they're trying to zone it appropriately as they get started on that project.
And on this item too, we do have Sean Bogues signed in. Would you like to speak? Or,
Yeah, I'm just available if there are any questions about the item, so.
any further discussion? Then we will open the public hearing. And no one else, so should have done that first. Then we will close the public hearing. And would entertain a motion.
Should I abstain, Chuck, since I go to church there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, if that's the case, I'll make the motion then. I move to adopt ordinance number 1167, rezoning Hillside Christian Church property at 1700 23rd Street, RC2.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. The motion passes. All right, takes us to item number 10, consider and take appropriate action on presentation of planning and development 2021-2022 fiscal year annual report. Got you again.
Yeah, I got 3 in a row tonight, so I'm kicking things off well. This is really just a summary of everything that's gone on in the planning and development department for this previous fiscal year that ended at the end of September, I believe. So we've got just kind of a document summarizing some of our highlights from the year as well as a 10-year comparison. In the agenda memo, I've got some of the statistics kind of just called out there. The new single-family home construction permits totaled 102, which is still pretty high if you look at our 10-year comparison. We were steady for a few years and then kind of jumped up in fiscal year 2020 from 88 to 147. That number's been going down each year as the number of available lots in the city are drastically reduced. But we do expect to maintain that year as new properties come on that have a lot of houses slated to be constructed. A couple other things that were noteworthy from the fiscal year 2021 to 2022 building stats. The new commercial educational construction finished at 15 million, which is a lot higher than previous years. The main reason for that being a couple of large commercial projects like the Canyon Lofts, which was over 8 million, and then the new EDU credit union, and a couple ALSUPs were all over $1 million each. There were also permits issued for 16 commercial remodels in that fiscal year that totaled $3 million. The largest project being the modifications at the other education credit building over on 4th Ave. Something I also wanted to kind of call out was our fees, our permit fees, contractor fees, and business licensing fees. They were totaling over $300,000 for the fiscal year compared to $215,000 from the previous year. That can primarily be attributed to those large commercial projects. When those come in, there's a high permit fees for those. So that's the overall summary of those statistics. And if there's any questions or anything, I can answer them to the best of my ability. But otherwise, it's more of an informational.
Again, you can see we're 4,200 inspections.
Yes, our
That's a lot
inspection
of,
number,
that's a lot of inspections.
real high.
For a staff of
3.
3.
Yeah.
That's a lot of inspections. Those guys are out there every day.
3.5 now if we count Danny.
Did you see how many days we had last year?
Let's see.
200.
1.275, I believe, is the number I saw. But that's a lot of inspections. I mean, that's a lot of work that's out there. And again, that's all about safety. That's red tag, green tag, making sure that people are building an appropriate manner and doing things in an appropriate way. And we appreciate that staff for doing that and keeping up. It looks like now, I mean, 4,000 is gonna be our regular total now. I mean, we went down on houses, but we still did 4,200 inspections, so. Thank y'all.
Any other questions? Lucas? All right,
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, item number 11, consider and take appropriate action on presentation and adoption of 2022 Canyon Downtown Plan. John?
We have folks from Fraser Nichols with us here tonight to make a presentation on the downtown master plan. I'll let them introduce themselves. We have been working, as this memo stated, for an extended period of time, over a year on a plan. I think we have a very solid plan. Our plan has been on our website and has been pushed through social media multiple times. Limited number, if any, comments related to that. Commissioner Ray was on that committee. And so at this point, I think we'll just hand it over to Chance and let you guys tell us about the plan.
Sure thing. So I'm Chance Sparks with Fraser Nichols. Excited to be back here in Canyon again. And I'm gonna do my best to see how much I can stress out your friends with IT as we go through all this. So this is a plan that is ready for adoption. I believe you'll have a resolution that's in your agenda packet. But this is really about a familiarization for you. Most of y'all were involved in this process along the way. But I'll kind of talk through some of the anatomy of the plan, what's in it, and some key highlights along the way. So this plan begins with a snapshot on the next slide. And this is really the data analytics piece of the downtown plan. It's taking the place that you walk around and you experience and you feel and actually turning it into a bunch of numbers for the most part, and really kind of breaking down what makes it tick, what are the patterns, what does it point towards with your market and some things like that. From there, we stepped into an engagement step, which involved a 16-member advisory committee, some online surveying, independence public engagement. This is the one where I actually brought my whole family up for it, and some focus group conversations along the way, along with the community event. Press coverage with that. It did rain at the event, which kind of we have learned that if water falls from the sky in Canyon, people do get confused and aren't as likely to show up. But we still had a great experience there and some great media outreach. And that led us to crafting a vision statement, which you'll find on this next slide. And it's really all about just creating this vibrant, exciting place and a great sense of community. The things that we'll typically emphasize in a downtown is that if your locals like your downtown, visitors are going to love your downtown. Because we all seek those same things, those feelings of authenticity, unique, independent businesses, great public spaces. It's what we look for when we're going on vacations. Why would it be any different here? So if you can drive that experience here locally, then you get that benefit down the road. From there, it develops into goal statements, which really emphasize a lot of working with what you got. Your existing points of interest, how do you get the Palo Duro visitor to identify with the city of Canyon? How do you improve all the circulation in downtown? How do you kind of rethink the position of Canyon's downtown as kind of a cultural center in the Panhandle? This is an opportunity for y'all because you have a lot of ingredients that go into a great place from a cultural arts perspective. You have a university, you have nearby major attractions, you do have fine arts activity already in the region. That's a great foundation for that type of effort. Attracting and retaining your retail and restaurants. This is something y'all are growing in strength with. You've got some great programs already. How do we supercharge those? And how do we work with all those financial resources that are out there? This is thinking about economic development. You went through and you've already actually adopted the tax increment reinvestment zone here. So you've taken a great initial step with that. And then how do you build partnerships and get everybody essentially singing from the same sheet of music is a key issue that we want to build on. And then how do you make this a kind of a hyper-local experience where everybody that lives in Canyon can be a part of making downtown Canyon great? Moving on from that, there's a land use and character element. This is kind of breaking down what's the right patterns and form of development in your downtown area. Broken that down into a few different categories. But where this gets more exciting is when we step into the illustrative plan on the next slide, because this is where we start looking at footprints and identifying catalytic projects, things that, it's one action, but it has a broader impact and key senses of direction with where you want to go. This features catalyst projects on a map. I'm going to walk through a few of these projects just for familiarization. So as you head into the next slide, well, you see kind of the rendering of what does this mean? We intentionally selected a nighttime rendering because part of what we want to emphasize is your downtown extending its hours a little bit. Not to an extreme. It doesn't need to go full 6th Street in Austin. But extending those hours out a little bit where folks that have moved here, that live here now, they can go out on a longer day. And people that are visiting can spend a little bit more time in downtown.
How do we encourage people to do that?
It's that's kind of the whole basis of the plan really, is how do you create enough activity where people want to do that? Kind of the metric we often use is when you get to the point where people will say, what do you want to do tonight? And they don't say, I want to go to a specific business. They say, I want to go downtown. And then they figure it out once they get there. If you have that kind of formula, then you will tend to have people that will want to do that more. There's some uses that you're going to need to come up with. You have usually like more live music, things like that. How do you do that in a way that complements neighbors? But there's a lot of kind of pieces that go into that, and it's not a quick thing.
I think the square packs out at night on the weekends.
Yeah.
It was there, I think, Friday night, Thursday or Friday. I mean, it couldn't hardly find a parking place, but the retail is not open, past 5 or so. So
Yeah.
I think that's.
It's creating those incentives, Gary, and helping them to understand that the scenario I always give when I talk with Chance and these guys is that I want to go to Sacramon's, but I know I got a 45-minute wait, right? We all know that if I'm going to go on a Friday night or Saturday night, 45 minutes, that's a short wait, right? And I still want to eat there. So, they're going to text me when I'm ready to come. So it's talking to Burrow and Al and letting those people know and encouraging them to know that, there's a sign on it that says Burrow and Al is open or this is open, so that I don't have to go. I'm just not going to sit there and watch everybody step on my toes and shuffle and try to grab the seat when one person gets up, I'm gonna go off and go do something else. It's an encouraging people to do those type of things. It's a chicken and the egg, but all of those things have to move together. And we've had long discussions about how do you make those things happen.
Yeah, and that'll be a lot of one-on-one conversations with those businesses because every business is going to be different about what their trepidations are about being open later, what their staffing issues are. So that's going to be a lot of one-on-one conversations to better
It may be some incentivization from EDC. There may be some other ways to increase that. I know Jeremy's not going to get a lot of laundry dry clean dropped off at 9 o'clock. I get it. I mean, that's not when people are doing that. But I know somebody might want to go browse the books for 45 minutes while they're waiting to get into the other place.
Well, most of those places I go to, I see the owners in there all the time, so I don't know if it might be a staffing issue.
Yeah,
They can't
usually
go
is.
home for that.
It's hard.
They wanna go home at some point too.
Yeah. That's always the struggle with these small businesses is how to get that rolling. So moving into the catalyst projects, the one that jumped off the page at us was the need for a public restroom. This is, we kind of view these as important range extenders, particularly for families with young children, because you never know when you're gonna need that. This is front of mind for me. I've got a 3-year-old. But you wanna make sure you do it right, and you wanna make sure it's got good lines of sight to the things that people wanna get to. Hopping over to the next one, it's looking at some commercial retail opportunities and buildings that don't have a great public-facing storefront aspect. How can you make them more active? How can you think about how they could be redeveloped or reoccupied in the future? And so there's a few buildings like this within the downtown area. This is looking at where the Texas Theater office was and some things like that over there. The next one, though, has to do with the courthouse grounds. And it's really important to think about not just as the place where the courthouse is, but that space around it. That space is opportunity for people to have additional experiences, for you to do more events in your downtown, to equip it so that you don't have to program those events. People can just go and they take their food and take it as takeout, and they go hang out on the lawn and things like that. So it's setting up for that and assessing what does this mean for things like the various lien holders that are involved in Texas Historic Commission, and making sure that that's whatever you're going with is going to be compatible. We've had those conversations. We feel good about what we're proposing here.
And we don't know if the county's interested or what, but this is a plan and something we can go to them, we've showed them, we can go to them and talk to them and work with the Historical Commission to determine whether that works or not. But it's one that our committee really landed on and felt really good about. We've all been by Palace Coffee, and they got the one little table sitting out front, and sometimes that's full, What happens if I had some benches out here and some tables out here? Would I have that many more people from Palace that would walk over there and stay a little bit longer in the summertime or hang out under the trees? And again, now they're interested in doing something else on the square.
This next item is modifying the square, which is really getting into the transportation and circulation, but also just thinking about how it's set up. You have some of these big step downs at the curbs and some things like that. What's kind of interesting here is that the steps you take to address those issues can actually make for a much better pedestrian experience overall. You end up with wider sidewalks. That's more space for things like sidewalk cafes and things like that, or displays. All the things that make a downtown feel really interesting and vibrant. When you can see people, it attracts more people. And so it's looking at those issues, but also how to deal with issues like ADA accessibility. And so kind of what we did is we looked at what are the steps we can take, what are those dimensions, and what works best to get you to something that's more compliant and a better experience. This is kind of what we settled on. I'm going to come back to the circulation pattern here in a minute to talk about that piece of it. This next one is joint use parking. So one of the things that we've observed is you do have parking lots near your downtown, and after 5 p.m., they're not generally, like those businesses aren't open anymore. The one that I think of is Happy State Bank. But those are opportunities where you can make an agreement with those property owners, and after 5, that's a public parking lot. So, like you were saying, when y'all went down there on Thursday or Friday and it was really busy and all the parking was taken up, that gets you access to additional parking spaces that you don't have to go build. It's already there. It's making better use of an existing asset. It's Gold Star Bank, not Happy State Bank. Trying to look for those opportunities. Churches are a great opportunity for that as well. They tend to have very distinct parking patterns, and those are just opportunities for work together with them, either as joint use parking. Sometimes they do markets on their parking lots too. So just great opportunities to work with them. This next one is looking at some commercial mixed use on the north side of the square. This is the old theater and buildings to the west of that, and really looking at what could you do here if you had a blank slate. We always like to take a property where there's an underperforming building and show a blank slate redevelopment for what it could be. This was a couple of commercial mixed use buildings, kind of with an area down the center, very similar to the shops on 5th. A little bit larger format here, but similar approach, creating more activity, pulling people in, so you have more active frontage. This next picture actually gives you a feel for what that might look like. If the buildings kind of step back a little bit, maybe that theater's more active, maybe that's an offshoot of Texas Theater where they're doing unique shows every year versus so they have their same show and then they have a rotating show. Something like that there's actually a lot of precedent for in other places that are close to natural resources and things like what y'all have.
One of the things that Chance and their team asked us to begin with was to the committee, can we draw on other people's property? Can we reimagine someone else's property? And as a committee, we voted and said, yes, reimagine someone else's property. So right now you're standing over here, this is H's Bank over here on the right-hand side. And what looks like the shops on Fifth, that's over there, that's Paul Blake's property. We reimagined that. And what does it look like? Well, one of the ideas is that Chance and them threw in the shops on Fifth on that side, something along those lines, something that would open up that whole corner, would open up the alley and give us more shopping and just a different feel. So that, I know sometimes people, oh, it's the shops on Fifth. No, this is a whole different area. And so we asked them to do that. We asked them to reimagine others' property instead of just the locations that we control. And that doesn't mean that happens there. That doesn't mean that it will ever happen there. But it's what could happen there if someone
show on
chose
another
to do
side.
that.
This next one is the 15th Street core transition. This is really important because if you're coming from Amarillo and you map and say, I'm trying to get to, I use Canyon City Hall, it runs me right down 15th Street. It doesn't take me down 27th and over. So making sure this gets a good treatment is really important. Making sure this is an inviting presence where if people are getting off the highway, they're seeing, oh, there is something here, and creating multiple experiences down that pathway. You'll be able to see this a little bit more in the next slides. So this first one is looking at a neighborhood park type of concept. People talked about wanting some playground space, maybe a dog park or something like that. Travelers, people travel with dogs. Having those types of things in place where you can actually create a nice respite. And also giving a feel for what this transition could look like on the next slide. This is important because you want people to see multiple things that draw them to a place. So they get off the highway, they see new development right off the highway. They see the big cowboy, you cannot miss that. They get off here, they make the step in, and they see this public space, they stop there. But from there, they can see additional buildings, and they can see downtown, see the courthouse. And so it draws people in where they thought maybe they were stopping for 15 minutes, maybe they're stopping for 2 hours, maybe they're scheduling another trip along the way. So thinking about that. Also acknowledging some of y'all's public space needs. Police station has been talked about. We've included that and given some design direction for how do you do a police station in a downtown setting like this and have it look right. And then also on the next one, looking at gateway development. And this is acknowledging that you get up to the highway, that doesn't need to be a pedestrian-centered thing there. It can still be auto-oriented. It's on a highway. But giving some inspiration for what this could be to draw people into downtown. Maybe this becomes a future hotel site. Maybe it's some highway-oriented commercial, something like that. And this gets us to the square and looking at the circulation. So we took a lot of different alternatives on this, and the one that we've all settled in on with the committee, with our traffic engineers, is a one-way circulation. And the goal here being shorten the crossings, simplify the intersections. I have gone the wrong way down your streets a few times now. Not proud of it. And making sure that your downtown feels like it's a space where people can walk around and just feel really safe, really comfortable. So that was a key theme, and also looking at how you access the internal parking in a logical way. That transitioned to a mid-block entrance because that allows you to close off different portions of the parking. So say you have a festival and you want to shut down the whole thing, you can do that. But you have a different type of market. They only need a half or a quarter. You can actually section it so that you can close it down in pieces and still have access to more of the parking on the interior. We also did look at the brick streets and brick paving. We provided a memo on that and some background on steps you should consider taking, and also multiple approaches fully costed. So you can kind of choose your own adventure for how you want to move forward on that aspect of it. Fourth Avenue, we made some adjustments to what the MPO had initially recommended. They had a median running right down the center. Y'all like to run parades down the middle of that road. And when we think about landscaping and trees, we'd rather those be off to the side shading pedestrians. Cars don't generally care if they have shade. So made those adjustments, created some parking buffers along the way with that. I think the next one kind of shows that. It's that same image again. We'll skip past that. And then getting into 15th Street, we've created street sections for 15th Street, kind of south of 2nd, where you're in more of that downtown space. And then a follow-up for north of 2nd that is kind of recognizing that you're getting more auto-oriented. Don't necessarily want that on-street parking right there. Pull that rendering again. And then the next slide after that is urban design. And this looks at the approach to brick streets, but also things like wayfinding. How do you help people get around in your downtown area, find your downtown? Public space recommendations, what types of lighting should you be looking at, landscaping, public art, things like that. Again, I will emphasize you have a university here. They are a great resource for things like public art. Because if you have an art student, the best way for them to find meaningful work as an artist is to have a commissioned piece somewhere. That's a great combination where city and university can work together. This follows up with an action plan. And so it's just exactly what it sounds like, comprehensive list of actions. Some are expensive, some are not. Our recommendation is always, be thinking about those big ones, but be constantly working on small improvements, because this is what shows that you're committed to change, committed to the people that have said, hey, we want to see a robust downtown. Say, hey, we're making changes every year. And then an action plan matrix. Part of what we did, though, is we itemized out 10 easy wins. These are things that are relatively low cost, that don't take a whole lot of time to do, but are highly impactful. So we have those, and then we have a list of transformative projects. These are your big capital projects, fully scheduled out with timing, and kind of the goal there being to show, hey, you're working on design for something, but be doing other stuff along the way. So that's the story of this plan. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
It's great, and we have a fairly detailed cost on everything. We got that. That was one of the things that you all had wanted, and we wanted to. So we have some ideas of what things cost. We know costs change, but what we'd like to do tonight is we'd just like you to accept that, and we don't have the ordinance in tonight. We will come back with an ordinance where you all show support for that, to formalize that. But tonight, we're just seeking your approval for this plan. Feel super strong about the plan. 15th Street has unlimited potential. 15th Street, it can become so much. And 15th Street is an easier redo than a lot of other places. Because unlike 4th and 23rd, there are large lots there. There are people that own big pieces of property, so things can change as opposed to having to buy 4 different lots to make something change. We feel really strongly about that, and the whole lure of how do you get them over the railroad tracks? Well, that's why there's a park right over the railroad tracks, because it's probably going to be fast food up on the corner. And then there's a sign there that says, and if you've got a dog, there's a dog park right over this railroad track, or there's a playground right over this railroad track. All I got to do is get you over the railroad track, and as Chance says, now I can see there's something else going on over there. And I can see that there's new construction. These brick streets, these are nice. This leads somewhere. And it really makes sense. And so, I mean, questions you all have, we've sent it to you all, and it's been posted for quite some time. Randy, did you feel good about the process, Commissioner Ray?
Absolutely. I think it's a good plan, and we've put a lot of work into it, as these guys have. It's something that's going to take a while, a good while. And I like how they did it. We just take it a step at a time it's important that we remember that too. You know, it won't be completed probably in our lifetime, but it's a good direction for all of us to go down.
Speak for yourself. My lifetime.
Some of us. Ouch.
Yeah.
I also want to acknowledge that we have a couple other team members that were part of this. TXP with Economic Development, y'all met Travis. And of course, our friends over at Brant that helped us out on a lot of the cost estimations and things like that, so we could right-size this thing to West Texas.
Yeah, Commissioner Ray, you were in the middle of it. Planning and all too.
Yeah, and you know, when you think about Canyon, what's the first thing you think about Canyon really is our downtown, right? And it's always been, I've always been pretty passionate about the downtown part of Canyon. I just think we need to take care of it and make plans for it. It seems, the last thing we want it to do is get stagnant. And I think we risk doing that if we don't have a plan in action to move forward doing something. To be actively doing something.
That almost sounded like a motion.
That's what I thought.
I can make it. Yeah, I move that we adopt the adoption of 2022 Canyon Downtown Plan.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. All right, thank you. A lot of work and planning in that, so thank you. So appreciate everybody's part in it. All right, with that, takes us to item number 12, executive session pursuant to 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.074, personnel matters, EDC director, and 551.074, board appointments, construction advisory and appeals board, Canyon Area Library Board, Planning and Zoning Commission, Parks, Open Space and Recreation Advisory Committee, Zoning Board of Adjustment, Main Street Advisory Board. And with that, looks like it is, I guess, 5:38. We'll adjourn into exec session. So, thank you all.